Welcome in. It is Big Ten Today. We are presented by Gatorade on this Tuesday. It is truly great to have you with us. Dave Revson and Jake Butt back from a second straight week in College Park and saw an impressive fourth quarter from Nebraska.
That was unbelievable. I mean, it was such a great game. I completely agree with what Matt Rule said after the game. He complimented Maryland. That was just two great football teams, two great quarterbacks dueling, and I was just blown away seeing the fight for Nebraska. Like, it's like a split in time. Like, is this the Nebraska of old, or is this a new Nebraska? And Dylan Raiola, 4 of 5 on that final drive, put the team on his back. And then they run out of the locker room. There were some Nebraska faithful there in College Park, and they got to go celebrate with them. It was really cool
team
experience.
That travels extremely well. But yeah, to your point, is this a new Nebraska? 2-1 in one-score games.
Looks like it
this year. So it feels like perhaps it is. So that was the story for you. Yogi Roth is with us. He was in East Lansing and had a chance to see the Big Ten's newest juggernaut, the UCLA Bruins, Yogi.
Yeah, well, you talked about a split in time. I mean, how about the UCLA Bruins in the last month? And it's kind of been the theme of this season. You look around this league, but overall, what a story. It might be, at least where we sit today after the last two games, best story in college football. I mean, it's got to be in the conversation of what Tim Skipper has done, how Nico Iamaleava has played, what they've done offensively with Jerry Neuheisel. I mean, the storylines are plentiful. It was cool to kind of be in the center of that. Game didn't go as we would expect it. I thought we were going to get a banger. I thought it was like 33-30, and it ended up being completely one-sided after the first drive, and got to give all the credit in the world to UCLA, Tim Skipper, and that program.
More on those games coming up a little bit later from the Guys' Tales from the Road. We always look forward to that. But let's get into some other action from this weekend, and we start with our big story. And where else but Indiana and the win over Oregon. The Hoosiers now up to number 3 in the nation in the latest AP poll after their 30-20 win against the then number 3 Ducks. It was the school's first ever road win over a top 5 team in 48 tries. It marks IU's highest ever ranking now in the poll at number 3, though several voters think it's not high enough. IU got 3 first-place votes this week. Ohio State remains number 1, Miami second. We're going to shine the coaching spotlight today on a number of programs, and where better to start than with Indiana and Curt Cignetti. And Yogi, to me, the story on Saturday was that Indiana just felt like the better team. And that is a testament to the job that Curt Cignetti has done.
You nailed it. I mean, to me, I look at coaching through the lens of the following. And I did my master's thesis like 20 years ago at SC on this very question of what makes a great coach great. And I netted out with 2 things, and I'll add one more in the modern era. Number 1, you have to be uncommonly consistent. Think of Curt Cignetti. You could literally write out his quotes before his press conference. You know exactly what he was going to say. 2, you have to be independent in thought. Like, you have to believe your way. He's had a bunch of impressive people around him in his coaching path, whether it was his dad, his brother, Nick Saban, you name it, but he's independently him. And then thirdly, in this era, and Jake, I think you'd agree, is you have to be an elite communicator. And I just look at Curt Cignetti, and yes, he's not, 30-something. He's a little older when you just look at the communicative coaches who just thrive, whether that's a Sean McVay. You can look at a list of coaches like that. But overall for him, the way he's got this team to be so steady and be such a reflective of someone who's uncommonly consistent, who's independent in thought. They don't worry about anybody else's dialogue. And then thirdly, his message is very direct. For them to go into Autzen, and we all have been in Autzen, to do what they did, which was win the line of scrimmage, be able to bounce back from a pick 6 in the fourth quarter, that to me is just a reflection of Curt Cignetti and his steadiness and his resolve. And his team showed that a year ago. They were the darlings. Everybody was wondering, is it for real? Well, after this past weekend, you can't argue that. I mean, that argument is out the window, man. This team is legit, and not just Big Ten legit, like national championship caliber conversation. They've earned it. They deserve it, and I'm glad they are finally getting that.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I think part of the hesitation was, when they lost to Ohio State and Notre Dame last year, I think what the evident discrepancy was they just didn't have the high-level capability in the trenches specifically, particularly when they lost some linemen in the Michigan game. They didn't just match Oregon's trenches, which I felt Oregon had one of the best offensive lines in all of college football. They dominated, really, the line of scrimmage. They dictated the terms of play there in the trenches. That's the biggest difference for me, Dave. But then I go back to Cignetti, and in the post-game presser, he said the number one The number one goal I had as the head coach was to ensure my team was of the right mindset, that when they took the field that they had absolute belief in themselves and in our game plan, that they could come in here to Autzen and win. And that was displayed by the team on Saturday. You talk about the game plan. Dan Lanning even said this after the game. He felt like the Hoosiers coach, they had a better game plan than what the Oregon Ducks coaches had, and that showed up on film. So that's Cignetti across the board. And I say the last thing, too, one of the biggest jobs as a head coach is to, what's the potential of my players? I need to get my players to play as close to the maximum potential as possible. That's what you see with Indiana. Every single week, their players are playing to the maximum of their capabilities, and that's how you win these big games.
I go back to another thing you said, which was like, we got to be humble and hungry. And I get that it's a cliche, and a lot of coaches have used it. But doesn't this team look that way? Like, you go watch them play, whether it was on the road at Iowa, whether it was on the road in Eugene, whether it was a non-conference game, like they feel that way, they talk that way. Whether it's Fernando Mendoza in a post-game interview, or whether it's players within a drive watching them after, a penalty or some sort of negative, self-inflicted negative, they don't flinch. Like, I just feel that from them, and it feels like and not many teams, I think, are doing this season, but they continue to get better as the year has gone on. I mean, they haven't dipped, and the challenges will not slow down for them in this league. They know that. Kurt Cignetti knows that. And I think we're looking at, in all of our lifetimes, one of the best stories in all of college football, pending how I think we might project how this plays out. I mean, you look at their schedule, and look, they're the favorite when you look how this thing plays out. So this is just going to be fascinating to watch. And I think for other fan bases that are like, how come we haven't turned it around quickly enough? It's so frustrating and maddening. But you have to give the credit to Kurt Cignetti. I mean, he is a dynamic, special coach for him to do what he's done, to not only bring the roster and get them to play, to your point, Jake, to their potential, but to do it in the manner where, like, they're a real threat. This is not a flash in the pan. And that is such a reflection of a head coach. And think about him. He took a head coaching job at IUP for $150,000 when he was 50 years old because he said, I wanted a shot. I wanted to write my own story. And now you could argue he's in the conversation of top 3 head coaches in all of college football after 2 years at Indiana.
He's written quite a story, and I think one thing that you guys have both kind of hit on independently here that, to me, kind of is tied together is this notion that it's very substantive. What is happening here is substantive. It's not bells and whistles. You guys are talking about line play, and you're talking about X and O stuff, but you're also talking about foundationally building a program. And that, to me, is what really stands out, is the staying power that this feels like it has. And I think the ability to change the narrative at a place as quickly as he has is incredible. Like, I think back to the first year of this network, right after Terry Hepner had quite tragically passed away, was the Indiana head coach, and his mantra had been to play 13. They wanted to make it to a bowl game. It was such a significant accomplishment at Indiana to make a bowl game. And then Austin Starr kicked a really famous field goal in the Purdue game that got them to a bowl game. And there's a great shot of Jane Hepner, Terry Hepner's widow, on the sideline celebrating this field goal that got them to 6 wins. And it felt so monumental. They won their 6th game against Oregon this weekend, and no one said a word about being bowl eligible. I mean, it's like a whole different world. Like, making a bowl game for Indiana for as long as I can remember, and I've been following Big Ten football for 50 years. As long as I can remember, that was an accomplishment. It wasn't even a blip.
It's impossible what he's done with the turnaround. It's like not even improbable. It's like impossible what he's done. I just don't think we have not seen it. I don't think we will see it again. It's truly remarkable, and it's been a joy to watch them play because, Dave, what you're saying about the substance, it is very real. In all 3 phases, this is a well-coached football team with good football players, NFL football players, and they're playing their best in the biggest moments. Mendoza made some big plays in the biggest moments. This is a quarterback 1, quarterback 2 duel. Surratt is a stud. Roman Hemby coming over from Maryland, making big-time plays in this game. I mean, this is a national championship contender, absolutely. There's no doubt about it.
Dave, I got the chills just hearing you tell that story because you're right. Like, it used to be, and there's a lot of programs like this, celebrate when they get to the bowl game, get to that magic number of 6. And that's not even anywhere near the part of the dialogue. And as I look at this team, and we watched that game, just saw those highlights again, it felt like a CFP game. And I think you have that in this league many times throughout the regular season, which makes it so dynamic. And it also gives you these tests to say, all right, who are we? Where are we? It was so fun. That was like Texas, Ohio State in week 1. Like, you got to see the bar real quick. And that was the knock on Indiana because of their non-conference. Well, that is not even part of the dialogue anymore because they've met the moment time and time again. And I think, Jake, to your first point, not only Notre Dame and Ohio State did they struggle in the trenches, they struggled on the road. They struggled with noise, and there were lessons learned. I could vividly remember Curt Cignetti, Jake, with you, and I think it was Rhett Lewis, after that game in South Bend, and talking about, with you very candidly, hey, we just didn't have enough talent, basically. We couldn't handle the environment. They did some good things. That first drive, they drive down. All of a sudden, boom, it's a long touchdown the other way, and game's kind of over. This team's able to withstand those things. And after that pick 6, I think all of us, at least I was like, okay, pick 6, here comes Oregon. I mean, how many teams can recover from a pick 6 in the fourth quarter? I mean, we saw 2 this weekend in the game you called with Nebraska and here in Indiana, but it's just a great point of how Curt Cignetti has trained this team, whether it is scripting periods in spring, in training camp, in offseason. It's the way coaches talk on the headset to one another. No matter what, it seems as though they just continue to know they will win. And we've talked about this many times, but there is a difference between hoping and knowing. And good teams hope things go well. The elite ones, and there are very few, they know it will go well. To me, this weekend proved that Indiana, within the locker room, they know what they're capable of. This is not a Cinderella story anymore.
And I'm with you. I think that drive, that last touchdown drive for them after Fernando Mendoza threw the pick 6 and he marched them down and they scored to retake the lead, I think it's emblematic of everything that you guys are talking about and the amazing change here, and we'll get a chance to see it firsthand coming up this weekend. Big Ten tailgate live from Indiana, 2 full hours to experience the game day excitement surrounding the third-ranked Hoosiers. Fun begins at 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 Pacific on the Big Ten Network and the Fox Sports app. Both undefeated. And what about Ryan Day? You go into a supercharged atmosphere at Illinois. For the Illini, this was a huge game. They were trying to get themselves into that college football playoff discussion. How better to do it than knocking off number 1? And Ohio State took control of the game early. As we continue to put the coaches in the spotlight here, what stood out about that performance and what does it tell us about Ryan Day?
I think what stood out is the maturity of the team, which is a reflection of the head coach, because I laugh at myself a little bit going back to the offseason and Yogi calling their spring game, and we spent a significant amount of time talking about all these new pieces. What is it going to look like with this newness? And yet I see a Ohio State football team that they look like they've all been playing for 4 or 5 years. It is a football team that's playing with certainty that they are who they say they are, that they are capable of what they say they're capable of. And for Ryan Day, I think we've seen this slow transition of identity as the defense has gotten better. Remember after 2021 when they lost to Michigan and it was a big storyline at the offseason, they hired Jim Knowles, and then year over year this defense has got better. And the offense is always going to be great. But now what Ryan Day knows he has is the best defense in college football. And what that's allowed him to do offensively is completely control the pace of game. I think they're second slowest pace in all of the FBS right now. They're in no rush. They control the clock. They just slowly strangle you and make their opponents feel helpless as the game goes out. I think maybe part of the reason we want more from the Buckeye offense, we're just not getting the explosive runs right now, but we're nitpicking because of how dominant they've been, Yogi.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. I think on the explosive run side, like if you're playing Ohio State and you're a defensive coordinator, you got to pick and choose the moments you want to come at them. And you want to bring pressure. We saw them get burned a couple times over the weekend. Overall, you're kind of trying to keep everything in front of you. You know, almost slow the game down for your own sake because you know how explosive that team is. I'll say this. Seeing the final score, because our game was at the same time, I was saying, oh, Ohio State, it was a rout. And then I went back and watched this one, and this was a heck of a game. I mean, Illinois did some impressive things. The challenge when you play the best team, and this was Ohio State last year at times too, is you've got to almost be perfect. Like you can't turn it over. You have to convert on a 4th down when you want to go for it. You have to get a stop. A ball can't get batted down and then turn into a turnover. Those things just can't happen. And then before you know it, to your point, Jake, they just kind of strangle you, to use your phrase. And all of a sudden they're up 2 scores and then 3 scores. And then you can get another one, but then they're going to drive all the way down the field. I mean, that's just who they are. You have to be so on it when you play them. You can't have any self-inflicted negatives. And the thing that I want to credit Ryan Day for is that when you watch this team, and you reference being there in the spring, you've been there this fall, it's an intense culture. It is so competitive. It is a competitive cauldron, as Bill Walsh used to say. Like, every position group is up for grabs every Tuesday and Wednesday at practice. When I watch this team play this year, they are playing with what Steve Kerr would say, joy. I'm watching a team have a blast. And I think part of that is winning a year ago and being able to deflate that balloon a little bit. Matt Patricia's vibe defensively, you're just seeing, we just saw a shot of him, smiles ear to ear. And guys are in positions where you kind of feel like you're playing like a kid again. You get to line up in a bunch of different places, you get to showcase your athleticism, you get to hit your hands in the air and tip a ball, get a pick. And when I see the opponent, let's just say Illinois, when they threw the ball downfield, when they had a positive run, there's 7, 8 defenders around them. And guys are picking each other up. Like, you're just seeing this team play with a connectivity and an energy that's really positive. It doesn't feel like they're feeling the weight of we got to run it back or natty or bust. Like, this feels like a team that's really enjoying the craft of playing every single weekend.
Yeah, Ohio State, they're playing with no weight, and they put all the weight on their opponent. I have to imagine it's so frustrating to be an offense trying to game plan and play against Ohio State. You know, like when you go throughout the week, you know it's going to be hard, right? You know yards are going to be hard to come by. But there's a handful of plays you feel really good at. You're going to try to scheme a way to get, 5, 10, 15 easy yards, something to settle your team in there. There's just nothing easy against this Ohio State defense. It's incredibly frustrating because for 60 minutes, whenever you have the football, you know you're going to have to fight for every single inch against the Ohio State defense. They just continue to impress each week.
And we've seen Illinois has moved the ball really well this year. Mm-hmm. I mean, maybe absent the Indiana game, but you think about USC, tons of yardage. You think about Purdue. I mean, again, this is not a bad offense
at all.
But 3 turnovers in a game, equaling their total from all of the season coming in. And so then Ohio State, which, as you say, isn't in any kind of a hurry, they start 5 drives in Illinois territory, and there's just no way you're going to beat a team that good if they're starting drives on your side of the field. Ohio State, of course, has Wisconsin this week. Luke Fickell against his former team. A struggle for the Badgers, to say the least. Our big stat is presented by Gatorade, focusing in on Southern Cal's 31-13 win over Michigan. Some firsts in the Lincoln Riley era in that one. First win against an AP top 15 team under Riley. Last one was 6 years ago. It was also the last season they beat a ranked team by that large a margin. It was their fewest points allowed against a ranked team in nearly a decade. And so, Yogi, as we shine the coaching spotlight on Riley, this felt like a toss-up game going in. But USC really was in control despite being banged up and running back. I mean, having a lot of things not necessarily go well during the course of the game. How did Riley and company do it?
There is a lot to unpack. I'll try to give you the smart brevity version. Okay, number one, let's go to day one. Lincoln Riley gets hired. And I was there that afternoon at the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum. And he turned over his right shoulder and he said, this place can be the mecca again of college football. And he was referencing the era with Pete Carroll and Matt Leinart and Reggie Bush and all of those things where it was the show in LA. There was no NFL in LA. It was the show. The Lakers were down. It was the show. And it took a little while. Year one, it had some spikes, and Caleb Williams, of course, a win in the Heisman. But it's been a relatively struggle since then. Well, last year, we've talked about this many times, that it was a foundational year. And the foundation was set to take a run. Now, they lost so many tight games, so there was so much more frustration than anybody caring about the foundation being laid, but it was there. And then Saturday night at the Coliseum, and my wife and oldest son were at the game. I said, what was it like? And they said, Dad, it was wild. And it was. It felt like the Mecca again. It was a vibe in LA, whether it was Derek Jeter being there, the Michigan alum, other celebs being there on the sideline, or just the place being full and alive. Like you're used to at some of these amazing blue blood schools in the Big Ten. SC felt that way. And to get that win, you could feel it in Lincoln Riley's face, and you could hear in his words afterwards that we're a tough Big Ten team. Paraphrasing there. Said it again in his postgame. And he's right. He's right, Jake. I mean, you go back and watch that game, and it's the run game of Lincoln Riley at Oklahoma. They're moving the line of scrimmage. They're pulling players. They're making plays down the field defensively. They're getting knocked back. I mean, they played with an edge that we have not seen at the Coliseum in about 20 years. Think about that for a minute. Everybody always pulls to that era. And to me, this is Lincoln Riley and just believing in it. And Jen Cohen saying, hey, I'm going to give you everything you need to go do that as the athletic director. And they did it. I get it's only one game, but think of these 2 weekends. They beat Michigan in the style in which they did. They can go on the road and beat Notre Dame. This is two of the greatest weekends in the last 20 years of USC football. And living in LA, it feels like LA and SC is quote unquote back. They got to do it again. But I thought I saw substance, and that is a reflection of Lincoln Riley laying the foundation last year.
Yeah, it's not what happened, it's how it happened. You know, before the game, if you told me that, you know, USC was going to throw for 300, 400 yards on Michigan, I would have been surprised. I thought Michigan had a great defense, but if you told me they were going to run for nearly 230 yards on the ground with a third-string running back, and they were going to run right into the heart, in the teeth of Michigan's defense, I would have been like, no way, I wouldn't have believed you. But that's exactly what happened. They physically dominated Michigan. I mean, I'm reading articles on Sunday morning, and it says USC imposes their will on Michigan. That is shocking for me to see. But I give a ton of credit to Lincoln Riley. You know, Sharon Moore kind of challenged him with the crowd. Hey, it's a sold-out crowd because Michigan's going to come in town. And, you know, Lincoln Riley had a response, and the Trojans were clearly ready to play. And it was a big moment for their program. If we're talking about coaching spotlight, the play calling was outstanding. The scheme for USC on both sides of the football was outstanding. Michigan's defense, that's a really good defense. They had no answers. I mean, you're talking about getting ball carriers into the second or third level consistently without being touched. That's not something a lot of teams have done against Michigan's defense. You know, offensively, Michigan struggled to run the ball. It makes me wonder, especially with the injury to Justice Haynes, was he masking some prior injuries? And I'll say that now to spin it forward for Michigan. I think this battle against Washington this weekend is the biggest game of Sharon Moore's career, because Sharon said, hey, listen, it was fundamental things. We weren't tackling. We were in the wrong gaps defensively. It was a mistake, and now it's cleaned up. We will find out this weekend, because when Damon Williams in Washington comes to town, you better be in the right gap and you better be able to tackle. But Lincoln Riley, I just give so much credit to the Trojans for the way they won the game this past weekend.
And then to Yogi's point, I mean, this weekend just becomes huge, and we'll preview that game in a bit. But third of three straight games against ranked teams. We know what happened against Illinois. They let one slip away. They come back and beat Michigan. And now this game against Notre Dame, really for both these teams. You think about what a great rivalry this is, 96th time these two have played for both of these teams. That is a huge game as they try to make their case as a college football playoff team. So more on that in a bit. The biggest coaching news, and we've kind of framed all of this in the coaching spotlight here, the biggest coaching news in the Big Ten and really in the country this weekend was the firing of James Franklin at Penn State. It's pretty crazy to think of where they were a few weeks ago, leading Oregon in overtime, at home with a chance to, you know, maybe move up to the top two in the country if you win that game, and where they are now, losing that game, losing to UCLA, losing to Northwestern, and Franklin being out. And so I guess the question now becomes, how do you try to salvage things? Drew Aller's out for the year, sadly, their quarterback. How do you try to keep things from totally spiraling out of control here? Well,
just you think about how is this even possible? How does it go from that point where you are a team leading Oregon to the point it is right now? And it's all here because it's not a matter of talent. Like, I know Penn State is more talented than the way they've looked on the field, especially in the past 2 weeks. So I say that they have a lot to play for still. They have veterans on this team, guys that maybe could have left and should have left or would have left for the NFL last year but decided to come back. They still have a full season ahead of them for their individual futures to play for. But then the mental side of this is what's so interesting, Yogi, because what I saw from Penn State to start the season up until this exact moment in time is a team with the most pressure by far in college football, and they wore that. You could see them physically carrying the weight of the pressure of expectations. Well, now all of a sudden there's absolutely no pressure. They are now the team that has nothing to lose, and we've seen that lead to teams playing extremely dangerous this year. So maybe that's the spark that can get Penn State going. I know Ethan Grunkmeyer. I met him in Denver when he was a middle school. Awesome kid, great quarterback. This is a tough, 3-game stretch after Wisconsin. He's a Columbus kid. He'll have a chance to lead his team into Columbus. Maybe there's something there, but now it's just the fact that there's no pressure for the first time this season. Maybe that can free some things up for Penn State.
Yeah, you hope so, right? You hate to see it. You hate to see coaches get relieved. It impacts so many people, right? About 300 people get impacted every time a coach gets fired, right? So it's not just the head coach, but it's the graduate assistant, it's the quality control, it's the person at the front desk. There's so many people that are invested in this, they get impacted by this. And what you hope is they can go have fun again. I mean, really, boil it down. So how do you do that? Well, you listen to the press conference yesterday, and they got to go get that grittiness back. And that was the line at the line of scrimmage. So how do you do that? And to me, it starts within the players, to your point, Jake, within that locker room. And I would challenge the players that among all of your seasons in your football life, you'll remember this one more than any. You'll remember this one more than any because of what you've gone through. Because of the expectation, because of your expectation, because of James Franklin no longer being there. You'll remember this season forever. So, yes, it is easy to look past the next game and say, well, I got to take care of me. I would just say to the players, you're going to remember this bond forever. So go do your thing. And the 67 or so players that hop on the road and play in this game this weekend or every weekend here on out, go look at one another and play for that guy and pour in for that guy. Because you do have the potential to go flip this thing. Playoff, I get it. Like expectations, I get it. But overall, can you make this an experience? You walk in and say, I'm really proud of how we responded to adversity that no one, including any of us, saw coming, ever. And now it happened. So I am so curious to watch this team compete. I'd be watching the sideline if I was calling this game the whole time. Who's sitting, who's standing, who's rooting one another on, who's picking somebody up. That is going to be the vibe that this team needs to have. And I can't wait because it's a proud group. And I do think they get some momentum going back.
You know, I have a pit in my stomach watching it because I just can only imagine how the players in the locker room feel right now. And there's only one medicine for that. It's not Alka-Seltzer, Pepto-Bismol, or Tums. It's getting a win. That is the only medicine right now for the feeling that these players and the coaches have. Go get a win because they know as well as anybody they're not guaranteed. Have a chance to celebrate with your teammates. You work so hard all year long. Just go get that first win and then start to play. Well, start to play free first and then get the win and then enjoy yourself. And hopefully for them, more wins and success follows.
You know what's going to be interesting about this game is that you're playing a team that's as good as anybody in America and Iowa in fundamentals. So I would imagine you get back to practice and it's just all about fundamentals. Like that's it. Like you simplify everything to a large degree because this is a team that will come out and play incredibly solid. That's what they do. Iowa is solid every time out. So if you're Penn State, can you just major on the majors? And can you flush what's gone on? Can you fix it? And I'm so curious to see what tweaks they might have so these players can play fast on the road.
There's a ton of experience and a ton of talent on this team, right? I mean, we've outlined they had more returning all-conference players than Michigan 2 years ago, than Ohio State last year. It does seem like, and it's easy to paint with a broad brush, because kind of to your point, Yogi, I'm not watching the sidelines. I'm watching what TV gives me, and to a certain extent that scope is limited. But other than Denai Dennis-Sutton, who had a couple big plays this weekend and celebrated them, you just didn't see a ton of passion. It just felt like a team that was deflated for whatever reason. There's a ton of there's a million reasons that you can understand why. I mean, part of it is the pressure on them. Part of it is the pressure on their coach. Part of it might have been the reception of the fan base. There's a lot of reasons that this kind of thing can happen. But I think to your guys' point, do we see more passion coming up this week? And certainly Terry Smith had that passion when he was introduced yesterday. And so maybe he can convey some of that to these guys. You can see the most recent team to beat them Saturday on our airwaves. That, of course, is Northwestern, a football doubleheader, kicking off with the Cats hosting Purdue. Yogi will be there for that one. And then it's Oregon battling Rutgers in primetime. Jake on hand for that one. All starts with countdown to kickoff, 2:30 Eastern, 11:30 Pacific on the Big Ten Network and the Fox Sports app.
In honor of Hispanic Heritage Month, the Big Ten Network spotlights legendary figures in the conference's rich history. Aina Cid Centelles, a standout rower from Spain, brought her winning spirit to the Ohio State crew in 2013. Centelles left her legacy at Ohio State as a three-time NCAA and Big Ten champion. As a freshman, she competed as a member of the first Varsity 4 boat at both the Big Ten and NCAA championships, where she helped that boat capture their second consecutive first-place finish. As a junior, she earned a spot in the first Varsity 8 boat. She helped that crew to multiple wins over ranked boats and was an integral part of the Buckeyes' third consecutive Big Ten championship. Centelles and her boat posted a flawless 15-0 season, earning her second team All-Big Ten honors. On the international level, she rowed with her teammate and fellow Buckeye Ana Boada, representing Spain in the 2016 Rio Olympics.
What a quarterback year it's been in the Big Ten. The conference boasting the 4 most efficient passers in power conference football, and Julian Sayin, Jaden Maiava, Fernando Mendoza, and Damon Williams. Mendoza's 17 touchdown passes lead the conference, good for 4th in the nation. Nebraska's Dylan Raiola, just 1 behind him with 16. That is the 5th most in the nation. Had 4 of them in Saturday's come-from-behind win over Maryland, which gets us to our QB spotlight. Jake, you were there. This was not Raiola's best game, to say the least. He threw 3 picks, and yet when the chips were down, figured out a way. What stood out as you shine that spotlight on him?
Well, Guy and I were talking in the booth. It's like that's what an NFL quarterback does. Like, it's common in the NFL to throw 2 or 3 picks, and every game's close. And it's why we say winning is a quarterback stat, because what do you do when you have the ball in your hands with a chance to tie or win the game in under 3 minutes? And that was the opportunity Dylan had with what was a frustrating day. 4 or 5 on that final drive. Some of those throws were ridiculous, like unbelievably high-level challenging throws, and he made them easily. And it was interesting because he told our crew last week, coming off of the Michigan State game, he said, you know what's different about this team? We love the 4th quarter. We look forward to the 4th quarter.
Wow.
And it's good to say that. A lot of guys say that. But he had an opportunity to live it and show it, and he did exactly that. And what a treat it's been to watch this Nebraska team mature in real time. I mean, it comes out after the game that Ja'Cory Barney gave a impassioned halftime speech to the team where guys were just completely fired up. 2 straight weeks, comeback win. I mean, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, these last 2 weeks for Nebraska are the exact game that Nebraska loses. It has been just a joy to watch them. And now all of a sudden you look forward with the way they're playing. I mean, this is a playoff dark horse, Yogi.
Yeah, there's a lot of circles around a lot of their games. And, oh, here we go. I want to give credit to Glenn Thomas and Dana Holgorsen, offensive coordinator, quarterback coach at Nebraska. When you play within this system, and you could talk to anybody, and I can remember getting like a class from Mike Leach on the air raid, and it's not necessarily like just plays. It's an attitude. It's an attitude of saying, all right, whatever, I'm coming again. I'm coming again. And that's part Dylan and who he's been his entire football life, but it's also this coaching staff and what they instill in him based on Matt Rhule's leadership. So that stood out. It is hard to do that on the road, to your point. It's hard to keep throwing picks and then coming back to the sideline and looking your teammates in the eye and putting the defense back on the field. And he didn't flinch. And I think there's moments all season long that players can pull from, especially quarterbacks. And that graphic of elite QBs in this league, and I think it's the best, Dave, in your 50 years covering or watching Big Ten football, this might be the best quarterback class you've ever seen top to bottom. There's so much talent. And all of these guys have a reservoir to pull from. And I think for Dylan Raiola, this will be a moment that he pulls from when he goes on the road this weekend, when they go and play Penn State, when you look at how the schedule lays out.
I just want to clarify, 50 years watching, not 50 years covering. I was not precocious enough to be covering the league at age 6, but I thought I should have been. Yeah.
Knowing you might have.
Yeah. So they're going on the road to play Minnesota this weekend, and Matt Rhule told the media that Dylan Raiola came to his office and said, Coach, we want to wear the all-white uniforms. That's the uniforms they wore on the road last year against Indiana and got, smoked. And they have a terrible record. Some people say that the all-white uniforms are cursed. Dylan came to Matt and said, Coach, we want to wear those all-white uniforms because that's the next notch for us to prove this team's different. That's a leader.
Another notch they need to prove they're different is beating Minnesota. Gophers have won 5 straight in this series, so a big game for them. And again, as Yogi talked about, like every single one of these games now, you look at it and say, you got to win this game to stay in that playoff discussion, and we'll see whether the Huskers could do it. So Raiola's a 5-star, as is UCLA's Nico Iamaleava. And you look at these last 2 weeks, obviously, have just been exceptional. The Penn State win was one of the stories of the year in college football. But, man, he followed it up, and you were there, Yogi, against Michigan State. So shine the spotlight on Nico. What's been different here for UCLA as they've turned to this Jerry Neuheisel offense?
Well, we're in fall baseball, right? And some pitchers just have a fastball. But if you want to win in playoff baseball, you got to have a couple different pitches. Nico Iamaleava has exactly that, right? Penn State, it was his legs. It was scrambling ability. Of course, Joe Rossi, the defensive coordinator of Michigan State, was not going to allow that. The whole game plan was to make sure that he wasn't going to scramble. His longest scramble was 9 yards. He played from the pocket. He checked the ball down to his backs time and time and time again. Then he saw man coverage, boom, huge touchdown to Titus Mokiao Atimalala. So to me, just overall, watching him manage the game stood out because he looked like a graduate level quarterback. He just made precise, accurate decisions. His discernment was an all-time high. And most importantly, he's the pulse of this team. He is the pulse of this team. They follow him. He knows that. He embraces that. He loves that. He and Tim Skipper, the interim head coach, have UCLA playing at a ridiculously high level. And I don't think there's a team in the league that wants to see the Bruins as their opponent right now with the way they're playing.
You know, earlier in the show, I complimented Cignetti and saying one of the best things he does as a coach is takes his players and gets them to play to their maximum potential. I mean, this isn't a massive, this is not a personnel change for UCLA, but Neuheisel was calling plays all of a sudden. That's unlocked a new feeling, a new potential. And the good thing for Nico is he has the capability, when he's put in the proper system, to really make opponents pay. And I love what you said there, Yogi, because they put the weight of the entire offensive success on his shoulders. He's been the leading passer and the leading rusher, but this week he does it more from the pocket. That to me is a sign of a young quarterback continuing to progress, and that's scary to think of what this team could be this year because of his talent. Now that they're playing with confidence, I agree with you, Yogi. No one wants to see the Bruins.
No, it's night and day. I mean, the last 2 games, they've scored 80 points. The first 4 games, they've scored 57 total. So, I mean,
crazy.
Yeah, no, it's remarkable. It's one of the great turnaround stories that we have seen in recent years. We'll see if they can keep it going this week. Big Ten today. Washington is now 5-1 after taking down Rutgers on Friday. Very much in the college football playoff discussion as they head to Michigan. We've been talking about what a huge game this is. Man, that offense is clicking. Devon Williams, historically good in that game against the Scarlet Knights. They averaged nearly 10 yards per play. We know Jed Fish is the play caller for this offense. Put him in the spotlight. What are you seeing?
Well, I was looking at his stat line. I had to refresh my page a few times. I was like, this is insane. I couldn't believe the numbers he put up. And I mean, this is a big opportunity for him because you look at their schedule looking forward. You got this game, you got Illinois at home, you got a 3-game stretch, and then you host Oregon at home. You can win. This is absolutely a playoff team, and if they do make it to the playoffs, it'll be on the back of Devon Williams. And what you saw against Rutgers was him at his best. I mean, he's arguably one of, if not the most dangerous quarterbacks in all of college football. And the good thing is we know who Denzel Boston is. We know who Jonah Coleman is, but they're having other guys step up. Roebuck, their true freshman receiver, he's making big-time plays. DeGraff, their sophomore tight end, he's making big-time plays. That's what a playoff team needs to do. That's what a young quarterback needs, is guys to emerge as the season's going on, so they're surrounding him with good talent.
Yeah, look, another thing a playoff team does is they have competitive depth. And I think that was the biggest question for some of these teams that had premium talent, like you just referenced at key positions, but then where are you in the trenches? Zach Durfee hasn't played in a couple weeks. Like, can they get him back in this game? Jed Fish was asked about earlier this week and said, we'll see, right? Jacob Manu, let's hope he can win his case and play all season. But if not, they got to pick and choose what 2 games I want to play this linebacker. And so that, to me, is going to be the question. And you're right. If they can go into Ann Arbor, a place where Jed Fish coached when you were playing, Jake, think about that moment. Think about that statement in year 2. And you think of 2 of the new teams coming to the Big Ten potentially beating Michigan in back-to-back weeks. And then for Michigan, back against the wall, they've got to get this win knowing what their schedule is. So we've kind of got these like CFP entrance exam type of games. It's really going to be fun to watch. And what we know about both of these teams is they're both really well coached. And I think you referenced in the earlier block about it feeling like NFL at times with the quarterbacks. It's also just schematically, right? You got Wink Martindale against Jed Fish. Sign me up for that 10 out of 10 times. I mean, this is going to be awesome to watch this game play out.
You guys make the point of this feeling like a college football playoff, not play-in game, but a game to stay in that discussion for the CFP. And this is the beauty of the expanded playoff, right? I mean, this is kind of what it gives us. And I think we could say the same thing about USC and Notre Dame. I mean, think about Notre Dame, right? They were 0-2. Now it turns out the 2 teams they lost to are really good, Miami and Texas A&M. But in that old scenario, it would have felt like their season was over. Now they get a huge home game against USC. I mentioned 96th time these 2 have gotten together. Yogi, you were on the staff. You were citing all the great games in the history of this rivalry, including the Bush-Push game. Give us a sense. Take us inside this rivalry and get us ready for what should be a great showdown in South Bend.
The history is amazing. The fan bases love it. The players, sometimes you don't necessarily feel what the fans feel because maybe you didn't grow up entrenched in rivalries. But once you get on that field and once you get to South Bend, as SC will later this week, God, it just gets embedded in your veins, man. I go back 20 years ago was the Bush Push, to your point. And we roll in on a Friday for a walkthrough, and it's the first time the buses started to shake left to right. I thought they were going to fall off their axles. You go into the walkthrough, and the grass feels like 6 inches thick. Makes sense with Reggie Bush and company on the field. And as the game plays on, remember 4th and 9. It's an iconic play. Matt Leinart at quarterback. And I'm up in the booth next to Lane Kiffin, Steve Sarkisian down on the field calling the plays into Matt. And we call trouble right 61 Y option. That's the Y for the tight end, Jake Butt. I know you'd love that one. And Matt gets to the line of scrimmage, and Lane sitting next to me says, check the play. Sark goes, check the play. And we check to an audible. 82 stay. And it's an old school West Coast offense play, which is a slant and go from Dwayne Jarrett at the time, and then a seam route from Steve Smith and a hitch from Chris McFoy on the backside, and it was max protection. Matt Leinart calls the audible. The place is raucous. He delivers the perfect throw, like centimeters away from the corner's fingertips. And as Dwayne Jarrett catches it, make no mistake, this is 100% true. We jump in the press box. I mean, it is like pandemonium. The papers go everywhere. I'm like scribing coverages, plays. I punch my hand up like this. There is a small 6x6 inch TV in the booth. I'd imagine it's much better now in the press box in South Bend. Break the TV with my right hand. I am sorry to whoever had to clean that thing up. Smash the TV, not on purpose, because we're excited. Papers everywhere. And he doesn't score. We settle back in. We grab our headsets. Pete Carroll, stoic on the sideline, doesn't flinch. We call the next couple plays, and then here comes the Bush Push. And if you go back and watch that, it's really fun because oftentimes you see coaches go like this, spike it, spike it, spike it. But at the time, we had the ability, if we pointed at you while saying spike it, that meant you sneak it. We start doing that. That's Steve Sarkisian and Matt Leinart. He turns around to Reggie and says, hey, let's go win this thing. At the time, pushing, maybe not allowed, who knows, whatever. Pulling
no, we know.
is
It wasn't
allowed. Yeah. Anyway, pushing is legal now, so maybe we'll get a reunion of that one 20 years later. But pushes them in, and we go to the locker room, and it was unlike anything I've seen. I mean, the locker room for the visiting team at the time felt like kind of like a high school basketball locker room at times. It was so tight. And to see that team celebrate, and remember, Charlie Weiss, Brady Quinn, they rushed the field thinking the game was over. It wasn't. We went on to play for the national championship. It was a huge moment, and it's one that's still talked about. And it signifies what that rivalry is. It's going to be amazing. A team who played in the national championship game a year ago. Marcus Freeman, as respected as anybody. Here comes Lincoln Riley. SC might be back. You might be going to like others might say that's the mecca of college football in South Bend. I mean, this is going to be awesome. I hope there's a finish just like there was 20 years ago for the sake of those players.
Yeah, Yogi, I mean, hearing you describe it back, like I remember that game. That was a game where two teams were playing with just absolute desperation. And Dave, as you kind of laid out the stakes of this game, that's what I'm looking forward to this weekend is two teams that will be playing with absolute desperation. Notre Dame's season is effectively on the line, and USC. Can you follow up a great performance against Michigan with another great performance? Then we say you are back. So going to be a fun one this weekend, Dave.
How does the secondary hold up against C.J. Carr, who's been playing really well here for Notre Dame? I think that's going to be a huge challenge for USC. We know how banged up the Trojans are at running back, but it seems like maybe they have some of the answers there. And Notre Dame, which defense shows up? They were poor defensively at the beginning of the year. They've been really good defensively here in the last few weeks. It is going to be a big-time game in South Bend. Women's hoops, top 25, hot off the presses preseason. And UCLA, the highest-ranked Big Ten team member, made the Final Four last year. They are number 3. Maryland checking in the top 10 as well. You see 4 other Big Ten teams ranking in the top 25, Michigan, USC, Iowa, and Michigan State. So 6 teams in all, second most of any league. We always like to finish up with stories from the road. We've touched on some stuff from the week that was, but Yogi, you were in East Lansing for that UCLA win. What was your takeaway?
Okay, well, after the game, you're navigating the crowd, or his homecoming crowd. You get to the airport, and I go find my partner, Rhett Lewis, and he is holed up. We're watching the Delta Lounge because it's Oregon, Indiana, and nothing gave me more joy because we're all professionals on the air, but we also love the game. We're fans of our school. Rhett Lewis, number 81 from Indiana back in the day. He's watching his team. He's seeing a pick six, then bounce back. I just sat back and I just said, oh, this is cool, man. I got to watch you and your team as an alma mater for Rhett Lewis, watch his team get a big win.
Yeah, who's got it better than Rhett, man? That's an awesome win for the Hoosiers. So in my game over the weekend, there was a ton of plays that got made, but one of the key plays in the game was Nebraska kick returner Kenneth Williams took one nearly to the house, but it was still an impactful return. Well, he's a walk-on. So after the game, as the team's celebrating in the locker room, Matt Rule in Nebraska, they say, hey, where's Kenneth? Kenneth Williams, come to the front. He's a walk-on. They said, hey, you're not on scholarship, are you? He said, nope. He said, you are now. And the whole locker room erupts. So that kick return earns him a scholarship. Awesome moment in college football.
Some pretty cool stuff. USC had a walk-on running back who played pretty well this weekend.
Get him a scholarship.
Yeah, exactly. I will see you tomorrow. Jerry DiNardo joins me for that one. Thanks so much for watching Big Ten Today.